Councillor Kimberley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to speak in my own language, Gidja, which is my first language, and then some words in Creole. And for members and Hansard, follow with an English translation. Hansard will be pleased I have also scripted these words in English. Kalangan ngananga rudyaran ngananga parambe parliament yidam nawararamboro jarak jarak borokeri manambe dul jigayan ngarakaram Western Australian laws. What I have just said in literal translation is today, right here, we are sitting here in Parliament House. This is where big, important people meet. They talk, discuss, and plan, making laws and policies for Western Australia. Ngayan, Belejba, Nganan Ngananga, Mangaombe, Waringarambe, Kimberley Euro. I find myself right here. Thank you to everyone from the Kimberley. Good one. Now in Creole, which is another language. It's a form of English, but more in tune with the indigenous people. Dijan Blanc and Yunga country, same spiritual belief, and translated this means, this is for Yunga country. As Aboriginal people have the same belief of a spiritual connection to country, so I pay my respects to this land and the people who come from here. My name is Jalbin Mia, but to you I am Josie Farah. I am a traditional Gidja woman. That is to say, my values, customs, and practices are based on the same values and traditions my ancestors have passed down through thousands of generations to me. In 1953, saw me start school in a little rough schoolhouse, a bough house, with a spinifex roof. It's interesting to note that during this time, we, the school kids, also discovered wax matches and the devastating effect matches can have on a spinifex roof. So, we got up in the morning and we were made to wash using a homemade cake of soap consisting of ingredients such as caustic soda, boracic acid, and beef fat. I remember that if you left the soap on your skin for too long, it would start to burn. Perhaps it was an attempt to wash the black off us. Our hair was cut short and rinsed in kerosene, and we were dressed in dingo brown flour sacks and sent to school. On arrival, we were all given a pannikin made from an empty carnation milk tin with a handle riveted onto the side. We dipped our pannikins into a diluted mix of water and milk, then standing in line sang, "God save the Queen." No one actually told us who the Queen was back then, but we drank our milk and started school. Mullabulla was closed in 1955, and all the Aboriginal families were forcibly removed from the property. We were relocated to Halls Creek so that the station could be sold and run as a privately owned pastoral lease. I have lived in Halls Creek ever since, with my partner of over 30 years, Mario. We have raised 13 children together and now enjoy spending time with our grandchildren as well. This story of my early life may seem a long, long time ago, but it is unfortunately a reality for many Kimberley Aboriginal people today. In recent years, many people were forcibly removed from Umbulgurri, not by packing them into a truck, like we were, but by turning services off, not repairing power generation, switching water off, closing the school, and sent packing to Wyndham before adequate housing was provided for them. Today you can drive into Wyndham and see many of these people sitting in the middle of town. Still no homes, no jobs, no training, no possession, living hard in parks, bush, and mangroves. A big thank you to Ngaganjin Ngolngan, my husband, partner, Mario. Ngaral Ngenama, he recognized what I was doing and supported me. I'd like to thank my children, Wanyanyagam Ngaganjba, Shirley, Lingalbal, Christine, Wadby. These are all their Aboriginal names because most Indigenous children are born with an Aboriginal name that gives them the right to their country, their identity, their affiliation with their own country. William Yogin, Jonathan Gangin, Priscilla Janimbal, Vaughan Jingarjin, Menatamulu, Renate Wijaral, Chanel Goyogoyol, and Elliot Yalmerin. I'd like to thank Elliot today. He's here in the audience, so just a thank you, son. A special mention to my grandson, Seymour Yambiljin, for his support in driving me and changing tires in the mud during the campaign. At just 19 years old, wanting to learn about campaigning and politics, and for showing us that young people can work hard for a cause, even when young people, I'm sure, would prefer to be doing other, more fun things. And to other members of my family whom I helped raise, Preston, Zoran, Rashida, Chrysanthus, Wayne, and Jason. I'd like to thank the support of my sister, Ethel Walalji, Kungali, Phyllis Wallaby, Wayagoral, Jennifer Tate, Wajala, and their children who are part of my family from the Gija language group that reside with the Ngaruanji and Yuriang Mdam native title claim. The values and traditions of my people is based on a foundation of land, law, language, and culture. The survival and continued practice of our culture in the region in a large part can be attributed to the work of the Kimberley Land Council, the Kimberley Aboriginal Law and Culture Centre, and the Kimberley Language Resource Centre. I thank them all for that. But it is our old people, our cultural leadership, our elders that work, worry, encourage, and teach us what the foundations are of our faith. People like Old Man Watson, Joe Brown, Old Man Davey, Mil Carter, and Edna O'Malley. I have lived my whole life in the Kimberley, and I've had to fight for my family just to live most of the time. So like a lot of people, I have experienced hardship, difficulties, and I understand what a lot of people are going through. I understand what it's like to feel you have been forgotten about because you live in a small town or a remote community. I understand firsthand the entrenched bigotry and prejudice that I and people like me suffer daily. In fact, during my own pre-selection in the ALP, it was suggested that I had no idea what Parliament was like, what being a Member of Parliament involved, and who was I to think I could be a Member of Parliament. I was growled at on the main street of Halls Creek and yelled at. Do you understand that you will have to turn up to work every day? Now, many of you here will know I served the Halls Creek community as a Shire councillor for 16 years, 7 years as Shire president. So why did this person think I could be treated this way? I can only assume it's because I'm black, and worst of all, I'm a black woman. I was asked recently if I had any apologies subsequent to my election, and I replied no. But it doesn't matter, you know. You just get used to these sorts of things. I should point out that a great strong woman in her own right, Irene Davey, also said to me during that time, "Stick in there, sister girl. You know, and I know, the only good man for this job is a woman." So here I am, proudly elected, proudly black, and proudly strong. I've heard that Aboriginal people are not capable of making decisions on land, economics, and preserving culture and the environment. In the recent and current debate on James Price Point, and I make the point again, that as a traditional person, I couldn't speak for this land, because it's not my country. We have protocols in place where Indigenous people don't talk about other people's country, and that's, I think, in all fairness, that we all need to understand that. Because we're all Indigenous people doesn't mean to say that we can speak on behalf of somebody else's country unless we do get permission from them. I can say, though, a lot of people have been hurt by the paternalistic, racist, and uninformed commentary. The owners of this land considered long and hard. They considered their culture, their customs, their land's environment. They voted for opportunity for their young people, not at any cost, but through hard and deliberate processes. Let me say this: we are not some living museum for your entertainment or curiosity, although we have been studied over and over again. Aboriginal people have a right to participate in the real economy. It is only through this that we will gain our self-determination. We know what we want, and we don't need privileged people preaching to us. I'd like to touch on something that is very dear to me. This is an issue that's been at my heart for a long time, and it's about the Kimberley youth suicide. Why do so many Kimberley children feel that the only option they have in life is to take their own life? Why is little money or government resource dedicated to helping these young people live long and happy lives? Why do we in this place think a debate on the location of a football stadium or the development of Elizabeth Quay is more important than keeping an Aboriginal person alive or in proper housing? I think we need to question ourselves on that. This is an issue of utmost urgency, and I think the government is to place a high priority to stop the flood of young lost lives. My people are refused access to their land to carry out the rights and customs of thousands of years by pastoralists, who are in fact just tenants of the people of Western Australia. How can any government allow this to continue and claim that all people are treated equally? I want people to be treated equally throughout the Kimberley and the state. I'm sick and tired of seeing people standing outside of courthouses because they have no money to pay their bills or feed their families. And I get angry when I see desperate eyes looking at me in our remote communities with feelings of hopelessness. All people need to be treated equally, no matter who they are and where they live. No one should be forgotten. I will work for the opportunities for our young Kimberley people in other industries other than mining. I want to fight for a strong beef industry because it's been the backbone economically in the Kimberley for generations, and I would like to see an agriculture college located in the Kimberley so our young people are trained so they can get the work opportunities generated by this industry. Mr. Speaker, would I be granted some extra time?
Extension granted.
Thank you. I bring my life's experience with me to this new and challenging job, and I intend to work very hard to make sure Kimberley people aren't forgotten by this government or anyone else. I will work hard to ensure proper health services, adequate housing, education equal with Perth, providing access to opportunity is given to all Kimberley people, and I will fight for a concerted effort by government to rid the Kimberley of poverty. We also need native title to be resolved as quickly as possible. The whole process takes too long. It creates a lot of humbug, it creates division, it creates frustration and worry for everyone. Simply put, more resources need to be given to courts to expedite outstanding claims, because in the process we have lost a lot of Indigenous people, older people, so we need these processes to happen a lot more quickly than it has done in the past. Certainty is important, not just for the WA business and government sectors, but for traditional owners as well. Finally, before I move into acknowledging some more supporters and friends, I want to state that the Kimberley should be recognised for its great spirit of community, strong Aboriginal culture, and iconic environment. I'd like to say thank you to Malaga. You all here know him as Mr. John Ford, Sally Talbot, Stephen Dawson, Claire Comrie, Ryan Casey, and Mima Comrie. And of course, Leslie, my very good secretary in Broome. Thank you for supporting me through the campaign. Thanks to Irene Davey, Mary Durack, Mark Binbacher, his twin Mary G, Tina O'Connor, Craig Comrie, Faye from Bijadanga, Mary O'Reilly, Gordon Smith Jr., Wazzy Russell, Ted Wilkinson, Terry Wilson and family. Not forgetting Darren Keogh and the Indigenous Labour Network and the whole polling day team. A special thanks to my friend Perth Mob, the leader Steve McCartney, one thing I've seen over time, and especially recently over the gas hub, is how quickly we in the Kimberley get divided as a community. A lot of what I've seen and heard, I believe, could be resolved if people remember to keep talking to each other. I want us to keep talking and fixing our differences, and I'm happy to help make that happen. If we keep fighting each other, only outsiders win. I want to talk about suicide again. This is very personal for me. Just a few years ago, my grandson took his own life. He was only 16. No one who has not suffered this type of grief and loss can understand the very real pain a family goes through when someone who is dearly loved takes their own life. For me, I left public life and service to my community. I retreated from my community, my life, to mourn, to be angry, to hate, to feel guilty, and to find answers. For me, still, there has been no adequate closure, no help in finding answers, and no support outside my family and culture. And I am not alone. Unfortunately, too many young people have died and continue to take their own lives. This means more and more Kimberley families searching for answers, trying to deal with grief. And just to lead up to my swearing in of becoming a member for the Kimberley, we've had about 6 to 7 deaths through suicide in the Kimberley. So it's a hard time for people up in the Kimberley, plus a young boy that was taken by a crocodile. The Kimberley is a small place by numbers of people, and like all regional communities, loss is felt across the country. And the loss is multiplied in families and friends, in cafes and shops, in homes, and also around campfires. I plead with this government to anyone who can help the Kimberley, needs people who can help with the issues that those left behind after suicide face more often by themselves. We need mental health professionals located in the Kimberley, dedicated to assisting those families and individuals who can break through the barriers of pain and grief. In our work here, it is important that we all remember no one should be forgotten, no one. I'd like to finish my speech with the following words. Please, Ranga, this is my language, please Ranga, Ranga berne berambi, jarak ngarenganan, wanyagam kapapuro, porangele yuriangam, waranja. In English, it's translated, please listen. Listen to the words I'm saying. We need to stop what's happening to our young people because they are our future. Thank you.